Hi, good evening, everyone. It is absolutely my complete pleasure to welcome Katherine and Elizabeth Hirsh for their talk on relationships and type, caring, conflict, and meaning. And we just quite sure they don't need any kind of introduction. But Katherine and Elizabeth have been using psychological typing, coaching, management consulting, counselling, education, personally, professionally for over 30 years. So this will be a fantastic, fascinating session. And I'm very proud to confirm sponsorship of this session by Type Coach, and that is run by the very incredible Rob and Carly Toomey. And we greatly appreciate the support from Type Coach for this. And you can access further information about Type Coach by clicking on the link to their website beside this session's information on the conference website. And I was just I know Katherine better than I know Elizabeth, but the title caring, conflict and meaning, not so much the conflict, but certainly caring and meaning are adjectives that I would use for both of them. So it is just fantastic to have you here, and over to you to begin your session.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Sarah, and right back to you, the caring you've shown, not only for me personally, but for the values of the association over the years have just been fantastic. And thank you again for your service on the board, and the place that you've brought us to is just so nice.
Yes, thank you so
after
much.
that introduction, Elizabeth, would you like to say a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Katherine. And we'll try not to step on each other's talking, which is sometimes a challenge on Zoom, but we will do our best. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your help in managing us and this session, and really the whole BAPT apparatus, if you will. I'm very excited to be here, and I've really had a great time in other people's sessions, and I hope that people enjoy today, that they find it meaningful and even fun. And a little bit before we start, just to sort of explain the layout, we're going to talk a little bit about strategies related to caring, conflict, and meaning. Then we're going to get into how we experience that, and then we will bookend it with some more strategies.
And for those of you who haven't met us before, we have the same last name because we are sisters as well as collaborators. And so it's a lovely thing, even though we don't live in the same country, that we can do this together because of this being a virtual conference. So without further ado, welcome all of you, and here we go. And so on this slide, you can see Katherine Briggs and Isabel Myers. And one of the things that we think is so valuable about type in the context of relationships is it helps you to have more discernment and less recrimination. So without type in my arsenal, I may see myself and others less kindly. Without type, I may perceive differences as a threat. With type, I have a framework that fosters understanding. With type, I can allow myself and others to be authentic. So I'm hoping that those guidelines will be ones we'll be able to uphold and to burnish for you throughout this session.
Okay.
Oh, and one other note before you start. If your process is to take notes, please go ahead and do that, but know that we will be sending you a PDF with all of the slides. So if you like the quotes, you can take photos of them or do whatever you'd like now, but know that everything will be coming to you in a PDF format.
Yes, just like Catherine said, so all of the slides. So just keep that in mind. If you just want to be in the moment, that's great. You'll have access to that later. I'm going to read a Thomas Merton quote, and I just want to let people know he was a Trappist monk. So when he's talking about love, and when we were talking about love in the session, we're not necessarily talking about romantic love. Now, you could be thinking of that in the session, but anytime you're trying to do your best in your relationship to others, whether it's work, whether it's home, keep that in mind. You can go either way. So the beginning of love is to let those we love be perfectly themselves and not to twist them to fit our own image. Otherwise, we love only the reflection of ourselves we find in them.
We also want to give you a little note here about mind reading. We find mind reading, or the expectation of mind reading from others, to be a losing strategy in relationships, whether business or personal, and discourage this practice in the strongest of terms. And we bring this up because we have run on multiple occasions a online workshop on this topic of type and relationships. And we did have a few participants talk about their expectations that a real relationship was one in which your partner could do mind reading. And we encourage you instead to consider adopting some of the following strategies and not relying on mind reading, since it's really not an effective or even a possible strategy.
Okay, so with that in mind, instead of expecting others to know what I need or expecting that all others can provide what I need and want, I can ask for what I need. I may not get it, but chances are much, much higher if I ask. I can see where there is a mismatch between what I like to receive and what I'm actually receiving, and I can make choices about how to handle this going forward. So I may choose to just leave things as they are because that's what makes sense, but at least I've thought about it. I can structure my work or family life in such a way that supports me in getting my needs met more easily. I can proactively reach out and connect with those people who tend to supply the type of caring, collaboration, work support, etc., that I like to receive. In new relationships, business or personal, I can see qualities that are important to me and let others know from the outset that these things matter. Again, not relying on mind reading. Catherine.
So we would now like to give you a chance to think about care, and in particular to think about some of the challenges in meeting others' needs when giving care. So hopefully you've had a chance either to look in the chat where Sarah has put the handout, or perhaps like I have, you've printed it out beforehand and have it with you, because there will be a little bit easier time if you've got this in front of you to do the activity. So just take a moment to look in chat where you can download the handout. And thank you again, Sarah, for putting that there for us. So from your handout or the next slide, which I'll show you in a moment, we'd like you to choose an aspect of caring that you find hard to deliver, something that's a challenge. You find it hard to deliver often or well, or one that an important person or institution in your life expects from you that you have found difficult to supply. And we'll be giving you some examples in a moment. And this could be from a past or a present situation, from your work or your personal life. And just a note right up front, the list you'll see on the next page is not an exhaustive list. There are no right choices or wrong choices. And if nothing here feels like a good fit, please come up with your own example. So, challenges in giving care. Elizabeth, would you like to start running
Sure.
through these?
Types of care that may be challenging to give. Again, these are all positive, but just because they're positive ways of showing care, they may not be easy for you, or they may take energy for you to do. So words of appreciation, comfort with silence, allowing interruptions, listening before speaking up, or speaking up more readily and often, giving space to recharge, promises and commitments kept, collaboration, being challenged to think or to do differently or to grow and develop.
Acts of support, help and assistance, affection given, sharing humor or playfulness, demonstrating patience and gentleness, engaging in lively discourse and debate, small acts of kindness, grand gestures, trying new things together, relishing cherished traditions together. And I'd like to start by sharing one story about small acts of kindness. In an early romantic relationship, I thought my independence, particularly as a young woman, was going to be a very important aspect to keep that relationship on an even keel. And my partner at the time really reminded me that if I was going to be in a relationship, I should be also thinking about small ways that I could share. And he reminded me that maintaining my independence didn't always mean stepping away from our time together. And the example is a very small one, which was if I was going to be making myself a hot drink, a cup of tea, some cocoa, to take the time to ask would he like to join me in that. And it took a little bit of practice, and it's still not a perfect example, but knowing that that small act of kindness made a difference, made him feel I was thinking of him, it didn't decrease my independence. It made my ability to be independent more meaningful because I could share that with him.
And if I could just add to that, Catherine, when you and I talked about this, one of the things you said is it was a challenge because it wasn't natural for you. Not that you didn't care about him, but that's just one way that you hadn't thought about showing your care for him. Is that correct?
Exactly. And he didn't ask me to read his mind and know whether he needed a cup of tea. What he asked me to do was to think about him when I was thinking about doing something nice for myself so that we could share that niceness together. And that's been a commitment that I've tried to maintain, and to think about what are the small ways I can support and show how much I care.
So I'll give an example. And this is something that I still deal with on and off. So it's a past, a present, and probably a future a challenge for me in a way of giving care. So I'm a social person and do a lot of social activities, whether they're in my personal or my professional life. At the same time, if I don't have time to process and reflect, my energy level goes down. And that was a little bit difficult for me to unpack because I am such a social person and people see me as that. So I felt a little bit, um, I felt some internal pushback from myself of like, what's my problem? I love people and I like doing things. Why am I not readily taking up all the invitations that are there for me? Um, And I also have felt, and probably will continue to feel on occasions, external pushback, especially from people who don't know anything about personality type, of, well, boy, you seem really social. Why are you wanting to bow out of this situation? So the level of social activity that might be good for other people sometimes is a challenge for me to give, even though it's not the people, it's not the activity, to use the cliche term, it's not you, it's me. Well, it really is me in that case. So hopefully this gives you an example of how you might look at this. Yes, these are good things, but just because they're good things, they may not be so easy for you to give, or you may not be skilled at, but there's pressure either internally or externally to provide that.
Okay, so we would like you now to, in just a moment, Sarah will put you into breakout rooms and give you 8 minutes, and she'll give you a prompt at the 4-minute mark about changing. And in our rooms, we'd like you to introduce yourselves and share the form of care that you chose because it's something you find challenging to give, or where your personal style clashes, as Elizabeth said, with the social or cultural expectations. So take turns discussing the role you think your type or preferences might have played in struggling to live up to the ideal of being able to care for another person in this way. And record any ahas from your discussion about the difficulties of giving care that you'd like to share with us in the larger group. And Sarah, do we have an even number of people? Okay.
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't. Okay.
No.
Sorry, mine shows 18, but I guess that's
So that includes the two of you and me. So
right. Sure. Okay.
15 delegates. So